Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fallout. This episode is about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New Orleans Saints. I watch every single game every week trying to find you the fantasy football diamonds in the rough, the stuff that the stat sheet won't necessarily tell you. So let's get going. Okay, and let's start with Tampa Bay. Now, if you had told me before the game that Jameis Winston would throw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the running game for Tampa Bay would average over 4 yards per carry, yes, I know they had help from a wide receiver run or two, but and add a touchdown, I would have said the Buccaneers probably won the game. They didn't. Beforehand, we, on the Pick Six podcast and then the Get Paid podcast, we actually picked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think both of us, me and Brad, picked the Tampa Bay to cover. I certainly did. It's one of the handful that we got wrong this week, and that happens. But, again, credit New Orleans for what they're doing defensively and offensively. Tampa Bay was able to move the ball. I thought Tampa Bay's offense would give New Orleans' defense some fits. I thought that they were going to be able to extend drives, but New Orleans' defense, they continued that momentum coming through, and Tampa Bay had a few 3-and-outs. You got to keep this Saints defensive line off the field, not off the field, but on the field, I should say, with first downs. Keep it going. Tire that defensive line, that rotation out. Let me go through. So Winston, I thought, had a decent game. 15 completions, 204 yards on 27 attempts. Obviously, you would like him to complete more of those 27 passes, but you got to give credit where credit is due. Before the game, in my touchdown predictions, I thought Godwin would get in once. He got in twice, so I was a little bit low on that. Godwin had 7 receptions on 9 targets. 2 touchdowns. The shocker really was Mike Evans was kind of, he just had a rough day. I thought he was going to get in the end zone possibly twice. Godwin got those touchdowns. And then you look through the stat sheet in terms of targets. Ronald Jones, Wilson, Brate had 1 target, O.J. Howard, Payton, Barber, just a lot of nothing outside of Godwin. The Saints obviously were able to bottle everything up. If I look at Ronald Jones as a runner, 9 carries, 35 yards. Payton Barber as a runner, 8 carries, 32 yards. Hey, New Orleans, I think, had a good game plan. I don't think that Tampa had a bad game plan, but it works out that way sometimes. Moving it over to the Saints now. Kamara, 16 carries, 62 yards. I thought he was going to have a tough day against this Buccaneers defense, and he did. Murray finally got a little bit more carries. He had 7 carries, a third basically of what, a little less than, of what Kamara got, and 28 yards for Murray. I thought he would be a little bit more involved as this team goes through, but he doesn't have to be because Bridgewater, I'm looking at his numbers, 26 of 34. I think he's now 13-6, by the way, as an NFL starter, maybe 13-4. 314 yards, 4 touchdowns and an interception. It's time to pick Bridgewater up, especially if you need a quarterback, if you have somebody who's struggling. Maybe you had Cam Newton and you're just trying to find waiver wire guys. Pick Bridgewater up, 4 touchdowns. He broke through. I thought Mike Thomas, as good as I thought the Buccaneers would do against Kamara, I thought this is going to be the week that Mike Thomas would look like the Mike Thomas with Drew Brees throwing him the ball, and that ended up being exactly what happened. 11 receptions, 13 targets, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. No surprise there. Check back with the analytics. They were dialed in mostly. Obviously, it was a miss with Evans. Godwin got a lot more than I thought he would, but overall, I thought it did pretty well. Kamara, 6 receptions, 7 targets, only 42 yards, so they did their best to bottle him up. And again, another daily fantasy, another touchdown prediction that was right for this game specifically. Jared Cook found the end zone finally, 4 receptions on 6 targets, 41 yards. The analytics are actually doing pretty well. It takes some time to get that data in, and really what my analytics are doing is predicting how each individual team with their skill set will attack the opposing defense, and things are starting to ratchet up there. That's why, we had Thomas in, which, let's be real about this, Mike Thomas predicting he's going to get in the end zone. It's not exactly going on a limb, but Jared Cook, the way the season has gone, I think that was a pretty good hit. I didn't have Ginn getting in. I thought he would have a nice game, but kind of like a 9 or 10 point game. And I guess it turned out to be that way if you're looking at DraftKings numbers, 2 receptions, 35 yards, and a touchdown. That is 11.5. So again, a little light on him, but nothing out of the ordinary there. I'd be more curious with New Orleans, looking at Traquan Smith, a guy like that, after Brees comes back. But again, Bridgewater, I think, is the big pickup. And then Tampa Bay, I still continue to sell on the tight ends here. Week after week, it seems like Brate at least equals O.J. Howard, and I'll give you their numbers. 1 catch for Brate, 11 yards. For Howard, 1 catch and 10 yards. Again, I say this every week. It's a trend now. If you can get rid of Howard, if you had him and you probably drafted him too early, if you can get rid of him based on name value, just do it. Or maybe wait until he has one of those nice games based on matchup or something like that, because this team is more matchup focused than, hey, let's focus on our players. Godwin, he was open all game, and so they took it, and New Orleans was giving it to him, and it worked out for them. So nice game. I didn't see a lot of sloppiness from either side. It was just, hey, New Orleans, who I thought was ready for a letdown after that big win against Dallas. I thought that they were either going to win close or lose to Tampa Bay. I thought this was an upset candidate, and New Orleans took care of business. So congratulations to New Orleans. I continue to be impressed. I continue to laugh. Sorry, Minnesota fans, but laugh about them letting Bridgewater go and paying $28 million to Kirk Cousins. I don't know what other teams were looking at. They must have been really worried about his knee. Obviously, they had the medical stuff, but man, the guy wins football games. So Bridgewater might be playing himself into a starting role somewhere else. I'm not sure about his contract status, but if he is under contract for a while, New Orleans could either have a nice backup to Drew Brees, who's obviously winning games. He's undefeated as the starter. In worst case, you just trade him away for a first-round pick and you roll with Taysom Hill or something like that. So New Orleans is in a really good spot, not only today but in the future. So, Drew Brees probably has 2 to 3 years left in him. But this team is probably going to be okay after that, especially if they can get Bridgewater to sign a nice long kind of waiting in the wings extension. Easier said than done, though, obviously. So that takes me through this episode, the Buccaneers versus the New Orleans Saints. Please like, subscribe, comment in the video, share this video. If you know somebody that would like it on social media, that stuff all helps. We're trying to grow this channel. We're trying to get our YouTube partnership. We need 4,000 watch hours. We have the subscribers, thankfully. But the sooner we get those watch hours, the sooner that we can become that partner. Then we can start doing things like linking to videos within the video. There's a lot of stuff that we can enhance this network with if we get more watch hours. So please, watch all the episodes of the Fantasy Football Fallout. I think there's some good tips in there every week, every game. Like I said, like and subscribe to the channel, and we will catch you on another episode.